Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sumukascha Ekadantascha Kapilo Gajakarnakaha Lambodharascha Vikato Vigna Rajo Vinayakaha Dhumaketur Ganadhyakshaha Phalachandro Gajananaha Vakratundaha Surpakarno Herambaha Skandapurvajaha Sukla Baradharam Vishnum Sasivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopasantaye Yasyad Viradavaktrabhyaha Parishadhyaha Parasatam Vignam Vignanti Sapatam Vishvaksenam Tamasraye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheswaraha Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya Aklishtakarine Namo Vedanta Vedyaya Gurave Buddhisakshine Krishna Dvaipaya Namjatam Sarvabhuta Hiteratam Vedabjabhaskaram Vande Samadhi Nilayam Munim Janmadhyasya Yataha Anvayate Itaratascha Arteshu Abhignatasvarat Tene Brahma Hridayaha Adikavaye Mukhyanti Yat Surayaha Tejovari Mృతాం Yatha Vinimayo Yatrut Sargo Mrisha Dhamna Sena Sada Nirashtakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Darbha Prochidha Kaitavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedhyam Vastavam Atravastu Sivadam Tapatrayon Moolanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krute Kivva Parairisvaraha Sadhyo Hridi Avarudhyatehe Atra Kritibihi Susrushibhi Takshanat Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam Sukhamukat Amrta Dravasam Yutam Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasikaha Bhuvi Bhavakaha Yam Pravarajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Vaipajano Veraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Mayataya Tarovi Medustam Sarva Bhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi Yaha Swanabhavam Akila Sutisaram Ekam Adhyatma Deepam Apisati Shatam Tamondhama Samsarinam Karunayaha Purana Vukhyam Tvam Vyasa Sunum Upayami Gurum Muninam Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Now with Bhagavan's grace, let us continue for taking a brief summary of Skandam number 1. Yesterday we came up to the point where Vidura returned to Hastinapuram and took, after Parikshit was born, and then took the Dhritarashtra and Gandhari to a forest so they can do tapas in the last moment of their life, and they left their body in a fire completely with the mind focused on Bhagavan. So it's a great service that Vidura did. And then Vidura went further on the Himalayan mountains, which we're going to talk about. And because he wanted to go to Prabhasa Kshetra, that is where he said that he was determined to leave his body, but that's later. So what happened next morning, Yudhishthira got up and went to the quarters to take blessings of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, as he normally his practice was, to fall at their feet, take their blessings, and before he started the day. But that day, so he was waiting outside the bedroom, but they did not come out. So he waited for some time. Then he went to where Vidura's accommodation was, and there also he didn't find Vidura. Servants told him, sir, Vidura had not come back. So he went to meet with Dhritarashtra and Gandhari the night before, and they had not returned to his room. So now Yudhishthira began to get worried. They also noticed that the bed had not been slept in. Then he looked, and then yes, lo and behold, there was no Dhritarashtra, no Gandhari, and no Vidura. He was absolutely lamenting. He was shocked, shell-shocked. But he didn't know what happened to them. He looked everywhere, all the servants look everywhere, but no, they could not find them. At the time, Sanjaya came running there, weeping like a child, because Sanjaya was a great confidant. As we know in Bhagavad Gita, it's the Sanjaya Vacha, right? He's the one describing what happened in the battlefield to Dhritarashtra. He comes running. He says, "Sir, what did you see?" Dhritarashtra, they've gone without letting me know. Normally, for everything, he used to conflict me. Some mistake I must have made. So he was lamenting. Yudhishthira consoled him, and he surmised that this is to do something to do with Vidura. Okay? And so they had gone, looked all around the city, but he couldn't find. So Dhritarashtra was extremely sad, very miserable that he could not take care of the elders that were in his custody in the last moment. Then he was in inexplicable anguish. He was quite anguished actually. And as the days passed by, he became more and more pale with apprehension and worry. And was constantly agitated, constantly anxious. And so the other brothers, Bhima, Nakula, and Saheb, Sahadeva, they've been noticing this. They approached him. What is the matter? Please, is there anything that's bothering you that we can help you with? Yudhishthira said, what can I tell you, dear brother? I see ominous signs all around. Now, from the homes of ordinary citizens to the hermitage of the saints and sages, wherever my eye falls, I see only inauspiciousness, ill fortune, and the negation of joy. I was arguing within myself. This was only the result of my warped imagination. I was imagining, I thought. I tried to muster up my courage and confidence, but I did not like to fall prey to my own fears. But I could not succeed, my dear brothers, because when I recollected all the things I had seen and heard, I felt even more afraid. I came across, I tell you, some of the things I saw that was contrary to the established practices of Dharma. Not only did they come to my actual notice, you know what happened? In the courts of justice, in this kingdom, we've been receiving petitions and pleas regarding wrongs, injustices, iniquities, misdeeds, which make me grieve very deeply. I saw some situations that were very worse, very bad. Last evening, I was returning home back to the palace after touring the kingdom. I saw a mother cow refusing to nurse and feed her own newborn calf. This is so contrary, strange, contrary to nature. I saw some women wantonly loitering in the bazaar. And I thought as soon as they saw me, they would rush into their homes. But no, it did not happen like that. They had no reverence for authority. They went on as if I was not there in the picture. They continued to talk without restraint to the menfolk. I saw all this with my own eyes. Then I simply proceeded from there. Then very near the Raj Bhavan, I was about to enter when I saw a Brahmin selling milk and curds. And then I saw people coming out of the houses and closing the doors behind them. Then I found them fixing some iron lump to them so that they cannot be opened, what we call as lock today. Because till the time in Dharmaraja's kingdom, all the doors were kept open. There was no lock to any house. Then I was very concerned. This tragic transformations that's happening. Then I tried to forget all this and started for my evening prayers. The sacred rite of offering the fire oblation to the consecrated fire. And you know what happened? The fire could not be lit. However hard I tried, I could not light the Agni. What a calamity it was. And so something very bad is happening, my foreboding. I'm telling you, they're confirming my premonitions. See, I tell you, how can he explain this fact? You tell me, my dear brother, a wife has quarreled with her husband and is arguing before the judge in court that she should be permitted to go to her parents, leaving him to himself. How am I to face such a plea in court that she should be permitted to dissolve the marriage and leave for her parents' home, deserting her husband? Its petition like this was admitted. And yesterday, then The royal horses in the royal stables yesterday, they started weeping. They were shedding copious tears. Sahadeva tried to investigate why because he knew the language of the horses, but he could not discover. Bhima tried to console him, saying that he tried to argue rational with them, rationalize, but Dharmaraja said, I have the same discrimination and intelligence that you have, Bhima. But I absolutely have no dread about enemies and etc. etc. No enemy can do anything to us. Okay, no one can even cause any difference to arise among us. Like you think, you're afraid. You think I'm afraid that something is going to happen to me personally, Bhima? No. I will never be agitated for that. My only worry is on one particular matter. I will tell you. It is more or less, 7 months since our brother Arjuna left for Dwaraka, but we have not heard anything from him. How the welfare and well-being of the Lord of Dwaraka, of Krishna. He has not sent any messengers or any message. I'm not worried at all about Arjuna and whether he reached safely or Dwaraka and all that. I know nobody can stand up against him. But if something had happened to him, Krishna would have sent a message to us. But I'll tell you, I'll confess, it is about the Lord himself that I am feeling worried. With every passing minute, my anxiety is increasing. My heart is suffering unbearable agony. I am overwhelmed by the fear that he may leave this world and resume his permanent abode. What greater reason can there be for sorrow? If this catastrophe has actually happened, I will not continue to rule over this land. It has been widowed by the disappearance of our master. Because for us, Pandavas, Vasudeva was all our 5 pranas. When he departs, we become corpses, devoid of vitality. If the Lord is upon the earth, such ominous signs dare not reveal themselves. Injustice and iniquity can have free play only when he is absent. I have no doubt about it. My conscience is very clear. Something tells me this is the truth. The brothers also heard this. They fell into a depth of grief silently because what Yudhishthira said made sense to them. They tried to encourage the Yudhishthira, but Yudhishthira would not give in. Then Bhima said, Brother, grant me leave. I will proceed to Dwaraka right now and return quick, bringing full information on what happened there. While Bhima was praying to Yudhishthira to give him permission, the sun set, the evening came, dusk, and the lamp started emitting feeble light from every place. At that time, a god came in, rushed in, announced Arjuna had come and that he was approaching the royal apartments where they were. Everyone rose. Suddenly, as if they've come to life, they hurried to meet Arjuna, thirsty for the news from Dwaraka. Arjuna came in, but he was depressed and despondent. He had absolutely no sign of joy. He did not look up his brothers on their face. He rolled over the feet of Yudhishthira. Dharmaraja noticed the signs. Now these confirmed his worst fear. And he wanted to inquire. He was very eager. So he asked about the welfare, the well-being of all the relatives in Dwaraka. Arjuna could not rise or turn his head. The brothers saw the feet of Dharmaraja streaming with tears shed by Arjuna. And they were all shocked with immobility. Dharmaraja also lost hold on his mind. He tried to lift Arjuna. Shaking him by the shoulders, he shouted in agony to fear, "Brother, what has happened? What has happened? What has happened to the Yadavas? Tell us about that." Our hearts are shouting, you are shouting. Our hearts are about to burst. Save us from this terrible anguish. But Arjuna did not reply. He could not rise or even spell out words. But Dharmaraja continued to rain questions on him, inquiring about the welfare of the Yadavas and others, mentioning them by name and asking about each one separately. But Arjuna did not react even to this desperate attack. Fusillade of questions that they were throwing at him. He showed no response. He did not raise his face and look on his shoulders, on his brothers. Then Yudhishthira said, "You need not tell us the rest, but this you must tell us. What has Vasudeva directed you to tell us? What is his message to us? Tell us that." And he was appealing. At that time, Arjuna could not bear it any longer. The grief that he had held back so long gushed out in full flood. We have Vasudeva no more. We are orphaned. We could not keep him. We have no more luck, he said, and fell on his face, sobbing on the floor. Sahyadeva grasped the situation and its possibilities. He closed all the doors immediately that led to the hall. Then he engaged himself to soothe and comfort the others. Then they were saying, "We have lived to hear this. What a fate, what destiny it is. How could you treat the world so cruelly?" They were lamenting and crying and sobbing. "Lord, oh Bhagavan, why have you deserted the Pandavas thus? Why this breach of trust? We have survived to hear this news. This is the result of the accumulation of sin during many generations." They were lamenting like this. The hall was filled with gloomy silence. Then Dharmaraja spoke first. Wiped the tears from his face, he questioned Arjuna in pathetic tones. He said, "Do you have news of the condition of the parents and of Nanda and Yasoda and of the other Yadavas? Please tell us about them. They must be broken with the grief of separation from Krishna, Bhagavan. When we too have been reduced to this helpless depth, what can we say of them? They must be sunk in unfathomable despair. How can they keep body and breath together? Why refer to the individual? The entire city of Dwaraka must have sunk in the sea of inconsolable grief." Dharmaraja was sobbing with sorrow as he pictured himself these scenes. Seeing him in this condition, Arjuna said, "Brother, the people of Dwaraka are far more lucky than ourselves. We are the least fortunate. We are the only hardened beings that have withstood the shock of the news of the departure of Vasudeva from this world. The rest left the world even before the news came of his departure." And at this, Dharmaraja exclaimed, Hurry, oh God, what is this you said now? What is this catastrophe? I don't understand anything. Did the sea rise and engulf Dwaraka? Or did any wild barbarian horde invade and overwhelm the city and slaughter the population? Arjuna, tell us, what happened? Put an end to our frightful speculations. Arjuna said, No sea got furious and swallowed Dwaraka. No ruler led his army against the city. Wickedness and vileness grew madly and wildly among the Yadavas themselves and excited their group and hate to such an extent that they slaughtered each other with their own weapon. Dharmaraja asked, Arjuna, there must be some overpowering force that must have urged the Yadava clan, young and old, to sacrifice themselves in this holocaust. No effect can happen without a cause, isn't it? Arjuna paused a little and then he narrated the tragic tale. He said, I learned that day that not even the tiniest event can happen unless willed by Vasudeva. I got fully convinced of it. He is the Sutradhari, the holder of the strings that move the puppets and make them act their roles. But he seats himself among the spectators and pretends he is unaware of the plot or story or cast. The characters cannot deviate a dot from his directions. His will guides and determines every single movement and gesture. The varying emotions and events on the stage by which the drama unfolds itself affect the hearts of those who witness the play, but they do not cause a ruffle in the heart of the Sutradhari. He continued, he said, he decides what this person should say or that person should do, and he prompts in them the appropriate words and deeds. The consequence of the karma performed and inherited by each individual from previous lives also adds its quota to this destiny. The Yadavas, who are our own kith and kin, were spiritual personages full of devotion to Bhagavan, as you all know well. Perhaps someday some sage had cast a curse on them, or else someday some dire sin was committed by them, because how else can we explain the sudden upset in their history, their unexpected tragedy? They performed a magnificent yajna at Prabhasa Kshetra. For 7 full days, the yajna was celebrated in unprecedented pomp and style. The valedictory offering in the sacred fire was poured, the Purnahuti, in true Vedic grandeur, in the presence of Bhagavan Krishna himself. The participants and the Brahmins performed later the ceremonial bath in the holy water. The Brahmins then received their share of the yajna offering and distributed it to the Yadavas also. Everything went off in an atmosphere of perfect calm, contentment and joy. Towards noon, Brahmins were fed with food. Afterwards, the Yadavas seated themselves in long lines to partake the feast. During the feast, as ill luck could have it, some of the Yadavas filled themselves with drink and lost self-control so much that they mistook their own kinsmen as their enemies. They started quarrels which raged into fights of severe fierceness. It must have been the plan of God, for however unruly and vile a man might be, he would not slaughter with his own hands his own children and parents. Oh, the horror of it. In the general melee that ensued, son killed father, father killed son, brother slew brother, son-in-law killed father-in-law, father-in-law killed son-in-law, in one insane orgy of blind hate, until there was no one left alive. Arjuna could not speak further. He leaned against the wall. He held his head, bursting with pain and grief between his pressing palms. Dharmaraja heard this account with shock, anguish, and amazement. He placed his hand on Arjuna's back and said, "What is this are you saying? It's an unbelievable story. Since your tongue will never speak untruth, I am forced to put faith and believe it. How can we imagine such a sudden transformation of character and such a lightning massacre I've never seen or heard anywhere else such intensity of mutual friendship marked by the Yadava clan. Plus, they do not deviate in the least from the path marked out to them by Krishna. They will not deflect from it even on the most frantically furious occasion. That such people should, in the very presence of Krishna himself, regardless of all codes and canons of good behavior, beat one another to death. This is strange indeed. Such a turn of events comes only when the end of the world is near. Arjuna, could not Krishna stop the fight and advise them to desist? Did he attempt to bring about some compromise between the factions and send them back to their places? Krishna is the greatest adept in the art of war and peace, is it not? That he did not try to stop this tragedy makes me wonder more at this awful tale of destruction. Dharmaraja was absolutely shocked. He sat with his head resting on his clenched fist. Arjuna, and he was crying. All the 5 brothers, tears were streaming down their eyes. These are the most courageous people, the most strongest people you can find. They were crying, sobbing. That's how much they were attached to Krishna. Then Arjuna tried to speak some words of consolation in reply to Yudhishthira's question, why Krishna did not stop this. He said, Maharaja, you are aware of the glory and the grace of Krishna, but yet you ask questions and entertain doubts like this, whether he did this or that. What can I say in reply? The fate of the Yadavas is the same as the fate of our own clan, wherein we and Kaurava brothers, we had kinsmen who were well-wishers on both sides, and we have the same Shyamasundar in our midst. But yet, we had to go through the Kurukshetra battle. Can we not see that this war would not have happened had he willed it so? The 4 million of people, warriors, who died on the field of battle would not have been lost then, right? Did we ever wish to rule over this land after slaughtering all these people? No. Nothing can ever happen without his express command. No one can cross his will or act against his command. This world is the stage in which each one acts a role he has allotted him, on which each one struts about for the time given by him, and each one has to obey his instructions without fail or falter. We may think in pride that we have done this or that by ourselves, but the truth is, everything happens as he wills. Raja thought aloud, Arjuna, many motives dragged us into the Mahabharata war. We tried our best through diplomacy and peaceful means to regain our kingdom, our status, and what was legitimately due to us. We bore patiently many insults and discomfitures, so many difficulties. We had to wander the jungle as exiles. Through divine grace, we escaped many a plot laid to kill us. They tried arson, they tried to poison us, they heaped public ignominy on our queen, they broke our hearts by systematic ill treatment. But there are 3 reasons for the final fight everywhere, Arjuna: wealth, dominion, and woman. But take the instance of Yadavas. They had no such reason to fall out of the desert, because in mortal combat it appears as if destiny was the only overpowering reason for this. They were rolling in plenty of wealth. They had no lack of grain or gold, and their wives were models of virtue, faithful and devoted. They never deviated from the wishes or commands of their husband. How then could this faction, this strife, and this battle break their head so suddenly among them? Then Arjuna replied, he said, my dear brother, we see the outer circumstances, the processes which result in the final event, and in our ignorance, we judge that this set of causes produced this effect. We guess the nature of emotions and feelings from what we gauge from the events. That circumstances, events, emotions, and feelings are all simply instruments in His hand. They serve His will and His purpose. When the moment comes, He uses them for His plan and brings about the fight He has willed. He is the embodiment of Kala, the time. He is Kala Swarupa. He comes as the master of time. Okay? And in some plot, He finishes the drama. That which brought about birth also brings about death. He finds reason for both in the same degree. Do we seek to know why there was birth? Then why seek to know why death occurs? It occurred. That is enough. Reason finding is superfluous occupation. He causes beings to create beings, and He causes beings to end beings. Bodies get born, bodies die. Nothing more serious happens than birth or death. This has been taught to us often by Vasudeva. Why then should we doubt or deviate from the steady courage He has sought to give us? You might say this is not just that He who caused us to be born should be the person who kills us. But in birth and death, man too has some capacity to earn punya and papa. And this has some influence on the course of events. Within these limits, the Lord placed a game of football with birth and death and life. Then He continued in great detail talking about this. Then, when we finish this, take up the last part of what Arjuna says, and then we conclude for today. Okay? See, we cannot sense the mystery of His play. We have failed to understand it. There is no profit in worrying over that failure now. With the deluding human form, He moved with us, mixed with us, dined with us, behaved as if He was our kinsman and well-wisher, our friend and guide, and saved us from many, many calamities that threatened to overwhelm us. He showered His divine mercy on us. Divine mercy, Daya, Karuna, and solved for us the toughest problems that defied solution in remarkably simple ways. During all this time that He was near and dear to us, we were carried away by pride that we had His grace. We did not try to fill ourselves with a supreme joy to dive deep into the flood of His grace. We sought from Him mere external victory and temporary benefit. We ignored the vast treasure with which we could have filled our hearts. We never contemplated on His real reality. He guarded us as if we five were the five vital airs, the prana for Him. He came forward to help us and lead us in every undertaking, however small, and He fulfilled it for us. Oh, brother, what shall I say? We might be born many times over, but we can never get again such a friend and kinsman. I have received from Him love much more intense than that of a mother, a love which no mother can confer. On many occasions, He bore the burdens of the Pandavas as His own. And to relieve us of the bother, He used to plan measures within minutes and carry them on to final success. It is due to the gift of His grace that we Pandavas have survived in this world to this day. Why repeat 1,000 things separately, brother? Every drop of blood coursing through these veins is but a drop from the shower of His grace. Every muscle is but a lump of His love. Every bone and cartilage is but a piece of His mercy. Unable to understand the secret, we strutted about, boasting, I achieved this, I accomplished this. Now it has become clear to us that without Him, we are just bags of skin. Of course, the fate of all men is the same. They forget the all-ruling, all-knowing, almighty placed with them as puppets. They assume that they are the actual doers and enjoyers. Like me, they are plunged in ignorance of the basic truth. When we who are so famed heroes and warriors in this sad plight, when we find ourselves like this, what can we say about ordinary folk who have no chance of awakening into this jnana? For this, the sad experience I had on my way is a direct proof. Arjuna said this and fell back, leaning against a chair that was behind him. He could not bear the separation from his lifelong support and guide, Krishna. With Swami Krishna, we will continue tomorrow. Our time is up for today. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om.